What if a coin that was once worth just 10 paise could make you look twice before spending it? Imagine finding a small Indian coin dated 1973 in an old collection, a forgotten drawer, or a box of family belongings. At first glance, it may look ordinary and almost worthless. But before you put it away, there are several details you need to check, because the same year can represent different mint varieties, and the condition of the coin can dramatically change its collector interest. Stay with me until the very end, because we are going to uncover the history of the 1973 India 10 paise, explain what collectors actually look for, examine the different mint possibilities, and finally discuss the extraordinary $900,000 figure associated with this coin. And if you enjoy discovering old coins, hidden varieties, forgotten pieces of history, and the possibility that something sitting quietly in your home could be more interesting than it appears, subscribe to the channel now. There are countless old coins that people overlook simply because they do not know what details to check. The 1973 Indian 10 paise comes from an important period in India's modern coinage history. By this time, decimal currency had already become an established part of everyday life, and small denomination coins were regularly used for ordinary purchases and transactions. A 10 paise coin may seem insignificant when viewed from today's perspective, but more than 50 years ago it was part of the everyday monetary system and could be found moving from person to person throughout the country. That history is one of the reasons collectors continue to find these coins fascinating. The first mistake many people make is looking only at the date. If you have a 1973 10 paise coin, the year is only the beginning of the investigation. You also need to determine where the coin was produced. Tiny mint marks can distinguish different versions, and those small details may be almost invisible unless you know exactly where to look. According to the source material, 1973 examples are associated with the Calcutta, Hyderabad, and Mumbai mints, meaning two coins with the same date can still belong to different varieties. The listed information for the 1973 Mumbai proof is especially interesting because the source gives an indicative value of around $24 in uncirculated condition. That figure is far above many ordinary examples, but it is still nowhere near the sensational amounts sometimes claimed online. The comparison teaches us something extremely important about coin collecting. Rarity, condition, and production type can matter much more than the face value printed on the coin. And now we need to address one of the biggest misconceptions about old coins. Being old does not automatically mean being rare. A coin can be more than 50 years old and still exist in relatively large numbers. What collectors care about is the complete combination of factors: the date, mint, variety, condition, production method, and actual demand among collectors. For example, the source material lists indicative values for ordinary 1973 examples that are measured in cents rather than hundreds or thousands of dollars. The Calcutta variety is listed at roughly 86 cents in uncirculated condition in the cited information, while the Mumbai circulation version is listed around 57 cents in that category. These are indicative figures rather than guaranteed selling prices, but they provide an important reality check. So if you discover a heavily circulated 1973 10 paise in an old box, don't immediately assume you have a fortune. Instead, become a detective. Look at the condition. Are the major details still sharp? Is the date clearly visible? Does the surface appear original, or has someone polished or cleaned it? Are there unusual marks that could potentially be related to the minting process? Condition is one of the most important parts of the equation. Two coins from the same year and the same mint can look dramatically different after decades of circulation. One may be worn and heavily marked, while another may have retained much of its original appearance. The better preserved example can attract significantly more attention from collectors. Now take a moment to appreciate the design and history behind this small piece. In 1973, nobody handling a 10 paise coin could know that decades later people would be examining tiny details under magnification and discussing mint varieties and preservation. Someone could have received the coin as change, used it for an ordinary purchase, and forgotten about it completely. Another person might have placed the same type of. That is the fascinating thing about old money. Every surviving coin has a story. Some disappeared through normal circulation. Some were lost. Others were damaged, discarded, or removed from collections. A smaller number survived in better condition because someone recognized that they were worth preserving. That journey is part of what makes numismatics so interesting. The Hyderabad variety deserves attention as well. The source identifies a 1973 Hyderabad mint example with its own mint mark and gives an indicative value around 9 cents in one listed grade. This is another reminder that simply finding the date 1973 is not enough. You need to identify the specific variety before you can meaningfully discuss its value. There is another important lesson here. A coin appearing less frequently in a collection database does not automatically mean that it is worth a fortune. Recorded rarity and market value are not the same thing. Serious collectors look at multiple factors and, when possible, compare documented sales rather than trusting a single number found online. And whatever you do, do not clean the coin aggressively. If you find an old 1973 10 paise, your first instinct might be to make it shiny. That can be a mistake. Cleaning can leave scratches and permanently change the surface. Collectors often care about originality, so an untouched coin can be more desirable than one that has been polished to look new. Instead, handle it carefully by the edges and inspect it under good lighting. Check the date. Find the mint mark. Examine the surfaces. Look for unusual characteristics. Compare the design with known examples. Then determine whether it appears to be a normal circulation strike, a proof, or something that deserves further professional examination. This is also why you should never judge the coin by the number written on it. 10 paise was its original denomination, but modern collectors are not buying the spending power of the coin. They are interested in history, rarity, condition, varieties, errors, provenance, and demand. A small piece of metal can become interesting because of what happened to it during production or because of how few comparable pieces survive. Now we reach the figure that makes this story so dramatic. You may have seen claims suggesting that an India 10 paise coin from 1973 could be worth $900,000. That number certainly sounds incredible, and it is exactly the kind of figure that can make people search through their old coins immediately. But there is an important distinction you should understand before believing such a claim. The source material does not support $900,000 as the confirmed market value of a normal 1973 India 10 paise coin. The catalog information described earlier places ordinary examples at values measured in cents, while the listed Mumbai proof example is around $24 in uncirculated condition. Therefore, the $900,000 figure should be treated as a sensational claim rather than a documented value for a standard 1973 10 paise. That does not mean you should ignore your coin. Quite the opposite. If you have one, identify it properly. Check the mint mark. Examine the condition. Determine whether it could be a proof. Look for genuine minting anomalies or unusual varieties. And if you believe you have something genuinely exceptional, have it properly evaluated before making any decision about its value. The real excitement is not simply finding an old coin and immediately declaring it valuable. The excitement comes from discovering what makes that particular coin different. Maybe it has an unusual mint mark. Maybe it has exceptional preservation. Maybe it is a proof. Maybe there is a genuine production error. Or maybe it is simply an ordinary coin that gives you a fascinating connection to India's past. More than 50 years after it was made, the 1973 10 paise can still tell us something about India's monetary history and the everyday lives of the people who used it. That is why a coin that once seemed insignificant can become a fascinating collectible today. So the next time you come across a 1973 India 10 paise, don't immediately put it back in a drawer and don't rush to sell it based on a headline. Stop. Look carefully. Turn it over. Find the mint mark. Study the condition. Ask what makes your particular example different. And now for the headline figure. The claimed value associated with this coin is $900,000. But remember, that is not a documented market value for a normal 1973 10 paise coin. The available information supports much more modest values for ordinary examples, with special varieties such as the listed Mumbai proof attracting greater collector interest. The important thing is to identify exactly what you have before believing any extraordinary valuation. Because sometimes the biggest mistake a collector can make is not overlooking a valuable coin. It is believing a sensational price without first checking the facts. So keep your eyes open, examine those old coins carefully, preserve them properly, and remember that the smallest coin in your collection may have the biggest story behind it.